Yeah,
I'm a casual space nerd, I would
I'm gonna
say.
take that term, the casual space nerd, because
Yes.
that's where I fall. Welcome to Narratives and Nightcaps, books, beverages, and author conversations. I'm Bree, always ready to dive into new fantasy worlds and take a step back in time.
I'm Megan, part critic, always team physical copy, and forever chasing good thrillers and a great plot twist.
I'm Emily, your resident mood reader who thrives on chaos questions and lively book chats.
And I'm Jordan, equal parts heart, humor, and high-functioning caffeine addict. I come with coffee in hand, wine on standby, and a Gilmore Girls quote for every occasion.
Cheers!
Cheers!
Welcome back to Narratives and Nightcaps. Today I'm joined by author Susie Nadler, whose debut novel is a captivating and poignant story set against the backdrop of a catastrophic earthquake and space exploration. Lies we tell about the stars blends coming of age with tragedy, friendship, grief, adventure, and possibility. Hi Susie, how are you?
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Congratulations, too. I know I'm talking to you just like 2-ish months after the release of this, and that's so exciting. How are you feeling?
I mean, I'm feeling great. It is, it was like so much lead up time to this. I mean, I've been, trying writing for so long, trying to publish a book for so long. It's just been literally my childhood dream. I mean, I'm a school librarian. I work with little kids and I look at them and I'm like, this is the age I was when I started writing. So it's pretty exciting for this to happen at this stage in my life. And so it was like a ton of build up to the launch. And then I had a little bit of a lull of kind of like, okay, now it's out there in the world. Like, is anyone reading it? What's happening? So, but now I feel like I'm hearing from so many people who finished it. And it's been really, it's just wonderful to know that the book is out there and has an audience now. I mean, after writing is so much, there's just so much solitude involved. So like to now have readers and have people's responses, and that's been really lovely.
That's that's wonderful. I was looking at some of the articles that people were writing. It was so fun to see what other people took away from it. I love to read other people's reviews too. It's just so nice to see like different interpretations and what messages really resonate with people. And this was such uh for me, like I just saw myself in so many different aspects of Celeste and have an experience an earthquake, like I was just telling you. But
Very few people have. I mean, of that
I
side.
just I appreciated so many different levels of the complexities that were involved in this story, but then also I told you I feel like I'm very much in my space era right now, so then I loved that aspect too. I just learned so much. I can't wait to talk more about it. Before we get much further though, I would love to know what is in your glass today. What is your nightcap pairing?
Yeah. So, all right, we actually invented this cocktail, my best friend and I, for my book launch party. It's
Love
called
it.
the Dark and Starry. We didn't really invent it. We just named it, but it's a variation on the Dark and Stormy. So it's ginger beer, and then bourbon is the liquor in it, which is, normally Dark and Stormy is done with rum. And then I like mint and lemon, so we just did like a little splash of that. This is the mocktail version because of the time of day here in California, but it's very delicious. It's just a bourbon and ginger basically. But when I realized that that cocktail has no fun name, it seemed like the the perfect thing to go with my book.
I
So
love it. Oh, I can't. Now you have me so excited for when this episode comes out to tell everybody about that. That's such a wonderful pairing. Even the mocktail version, totally good. Uh, it's 9 a.m. for you. It's noon for me on a work day. So,
yeah, it's definitely 5 o'clock somewhere. So I mean,
um, yeah, that's when we joke about that all the time. People
yeah.
that regularly listen are probably like, wow, they do. But when we started this, obviously, we never really that was one of the things we didn't think about was all of the different time zones everybody would be in, and now we have four co-hosts. We all live in four different time zones. We talk to
Oh
people
wow.
all over the world. Even like I'm scheduling an interview right now that I think is going to happen at 5 a.m. my time, and I'm like, oh, my nightcap will be coffee.
Be doing a coffee at that hour.
Yeah, it'll have to be coffee to talk to somebody at 5 a.m., but that's okay. That sounds delicious. It's almost Friday, so I might have to I think that's an easy thing to convince my husband. That's a nightcap right up his alley too.
Yeah, it's a very friendly, it's a friendly drink. You can go, measurements can be played with. We had the book launch at this amazing like boat club in San Francisco that's right on the bay, and it's a very old school kind of place. So I was like, we gotta just pick something very simple, and this worked. So it's
That's
delicious.
so cool.
It's a hit.
Oh, how fun. Well, what about when you're settling down to write? What is your go-to drink while you're working?
Great question. Often coffee. I mean, just energy wise, that helps. It like clears my brain a little bit. Well, it's probably doing the opposite, but that's what it feels like it's doing. But sometimes I also, if I've already had too much coffee, which is a frequent state of affairs, I also like throat coat tea. That's one of my go-tos. It's that traditional medicinals brand that they have all these kind of different, but it's not actually medicinal. It's just an echinacea tea basically, and it tastes very licoricey, so it's kind of sweet when you don't have to add anything, and it still has like a sweetness to it. And it steeps for 10 minutes, and it kind of puts this like nice spicy sweet smell in the air. And yeah, now that I've been drinking that while I write, I think the whole sensory experience puts me in the mood to be creative, which is nice. So
I
yeah.
like that. That's a great recommendation, something I should consider too, because I also have a tendency to overindulge when it comes to the coffee. And I need to find the right tea for me that isn't a chai tea latte, because to me I'm like that doesn't count. We
Yeah,
we
they're
need
delicious,
something.
but
They are delicious, but
yeah.
very good. Well, as you mentioned, you are a school librarian as well, which I think is so cool because in another life, I would be a librarian too, or maybe it's still in my future, who knows.
Yeah.
What are some of the favorite books that you recommend to students, to the children that you see? I don't know what age group it typically is, but what are some of the books that you typically recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I work with K-8, so yeah, I teach classes to little kids, kindergarten to fourth grade, and then I also work with middle school students as well. So not as many teen books because it goes up to eighth grade, although my seventh and eighth graders are basically reading adult books at this point. So it's just a matter of what we can keep in the school library. But some favorites, gosh, I have so many. That's a big question. I was just thinking because someone asked me the question when I was interviewed recently about like a listener called into this show and asked about a series recommendation for a 12-year-old boy where the boy is the main character. And I completely blanked because I work at a girls' school. And frankly, most of our library collection is like girl main characters, just like not necessarily on purpose, but it just happened that way, maybe partly on purpose. But I thought afterwards about the Track series by Jason Reynolds, which is an amazing series of books about a track team. It starts out with with the book Ghost. The first one's called Ghost, and the boy is called Ghost because he's so fast. You barely know he's there. But he sort of gets noticed by the track coach when he is running in his neighborhood because he has there's some difficulty going on at home. There's some dangerous conditions, and he's also sort of running from some memories of the past. And so he ends up finding this track team, the community of this track team becomes like a family to him. And then each subsequent book, the main character changes to a different kid on the track team. The newest one came out, it's called Coach, and it's actually about the coach, which is so interesting because it's really unusual to have an adult be the main character of a children's book. So really audacious. Jason Reynolds, I mean, he's fabulous. I love everything he does, but that particular series of books to me is just so moving. So the writing is beautiful. He does an amazing job with setting, and it's really important in those stories to see where these kids come from. And they're just like the kids themselves really come alive, especially in dialogue, which is something I always like. I'm studying while I read because I find it to be so tricky and really important to the success of a story. So yeah, I love that. I can think of a million others.
Sure, I think that's such a fantastic recommendation. Well, I was just thinking too, I mean, we have so many, I mean, most of the people that listen to this podcast are women. But I just so we have so many like mothers, not only that I co-host with, but so that's why I was so curious. I was like, if anybody's gonna have an amazing recommendation, it's gonna be Susie. That's
I do.
um
I mean, I also have a teenager. I have two teenagers at home. So my daughter is a huge reader and like reads everything. So sometimes I just pick up things because is reading them. But yeah, I mean, lately I read a lot of YA because that's what I'm writing right now. And I love Jandy Nelson. I don't know if you ever read anything by her, but her most recent book is called When the World Tips Over.
okay.
But the other two are I'll Give You the Sun and The Sky Is Everywhere. And when I read I'll Give You the Sun, that's what kind of made me want to write YA fiction. Like, it's so beautiful. The writing is so vivid, and it was kind of a moment when I thought like, oh, you can write quote unquote literary fiction, whatever that means, for young people. It was just kind of a revelation for me when I read that book, and like her writing's just electric. And those are set in Northern California too, which is fun. I love reading Bay Area books and local books. So yeah.
I mean, I feel like my brain is giving out on me, but even as I was reading yours too, I was like, this is the like second book within a short period of time that I've read set in the Bay Area, but it's just been escaping me ever since because I feel like consumed by a lot of different stories right now. But that is always fun just to read whatever is sort of in your area. I live in Florida too, and I remember I don't know if you've read anything by Ginny Myers Sane, but she writes YA. They're more of like YA mysteries, thrillers, kind of with a supernatural element. And
I
so,
love
yeah,
those. I'm always looking for more. I'm like, where's my pen? So
highly, highly recommend. And she's just a lovely, lovely person. I had the opportunity to meet her at a book festival one time, and I've talked to her before on the podcast. She's wonderful. But I remember she wrote one. It's called One Last Breath, and it was set in the Springs in Florida, which are like 30 minutes north of me.
oh wow.
And so it's just always very, very cool to read literature that is your backyard.
Well, there's a part of my book in Florida. I
I
don't
know.
about it, but this is not to spoil anything for people, but I haven't been to the place where
I
that's
was
set.
going to ask
I've
you.
been, but many years ago. It's been quite a. Oh no, wait, I was just in Tampa last year actually, but before writing this book, it had been quite a long time before I'd been to Florida. But I've never been to the location. I don't know. Do we? We don't want to mention things that happen late in the book,
I
right?
was, I'm not gonna lie, I was like very nervous too because I wanted to talk about it, but I don't want to spoil anything.
Right. I
At the
think
same
that's
time,
actually on the cover flap that they end up in Florida.
it
I,
is.
yeah.
You
Sorry.
do know that some way, shape, or form it happens,
Mhm.
and people get to Florida.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I did think about that a lot too because even with the Artemis and everything, I mean, I'm on the West Coast, so I'm actually in the Tampa Bay area.
Oh,
But when the Artemis launched, we sat in our backyard to watch that and everything, which was really, really cool. My husband in particular, he's like fascinated with space, loves everything space, so he was really excited about it. But so
that
it is
makes
a cool
me that
experience.
person. Yeah, that is so cool. I was very just like hooked on all of that when it was happening a couple weeks. And I just think the way it was handled and the astronauts, the way they communicated
I
what was
know.
happening up there was we just haven't had anything like that before. I mean, we haven't had anything like that since the advent of social media, and it was so powerful to see the way people were riveted by it. And yeah, all the kids I work with just getting so excited about space because of it. And yeah, really
That's
fun.
so cool. They were very, very inspiring I mean, the whole thing was so exciting, but just how anytime I was so fascinated just watching them speak and talk about the experience while they were up there and since they've been back, very, very, very cool. Well, on that note, I'm a little curious if you could visit any planet in our solar system, which would you choose?
Interesting. I mean, Mars.
Okay.
So the Mars part of the book was actually not that big a deal in earlier drafts. Like I didn't know it was gonna. I knew that I wanted the characters to be space nerds because that just seemed like a fun thing to do. Like, and I like the idea of contrasting the, you know, this sort of thinking about the cosmos with what was happening on the ground with the earthquake is so like it makes you like really have to be tethered to your, they're sheltering in place at first, they're repairing the broken city, they're moving through the broken city, so it's like that's the very grounded on earth experience. And I also wanted to think about like the metaphor of the coming of age with like the launch. So going out into the world, and how that was going to expand, how your worldview expands when you cross over into adulthood, right? Hopefully. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. So then I liked that idea when I was playing with it while I was writing, but it wasn't until kind of later in the first draft that I realized that the Mars mission was going to be a big part of the story. And so, and then actually even in later, like when we sold the book, my editor is very into space too. So he said, oh, can we make even more of this? Like, can we lean even more into the sort of speculative fiction aspect of it? Actually think about like what it means that this is an alternate future timeline or a near future timeline. And so, yeah, so we played around with that a lot, and I ended up sprinkling a lot more in and thinking about how, the news cycle transition, thinking about bringing that in more. Like at first everyone's talking about the earthquake, and then as the Mars mission approaches, that becomes more of a focus for the outside world, which is something that the characters are grappling with.
Mars makes total sense. And, probably have a somewhat decent shot.
I mean, that's the one that feels most like hospitable, right? Even though it's totally inhospitable. I mean, I have you seen the movie The Martian? Have you?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
I have not actually read the book, but I have seen the movie, and I love it. And it's just one of my favorite space movies because it is so real. You're just the science of it. I mean, you're there with him, and it really feels like such a human experience happening on another planet. I just think Mars has. I'm really interested in the idea of life somewhere else. And I mean, I think there was a really interesting piece about this by Neil deGrasse Tyson in the New York Times yesterday. I don't know if you saw that, but
I didn't see that, but I think he is one of the best communicators like out there,
yeah.
and such a fascinating person. So I don't mean to cut you off, but I haven't seen it yet, but I think he is one of the best communicators. That he's just so inspiring to me because I work a lot in marketing and communications, and he is one person that I like love to study and analyze how he articulates his message and what he wants to say. So I'll have to look at that.
It's so, I mean, his enthusiasm, you're right on board there, right? So the article is about how they're about to release all these government files about aliens and UFOs. And basically, he's always making the point, like, it would be far less likely for there not to be life out there, right? I don't know if that was too many negatives, but you know what I mean? Like there's definitely some form of life elsewhere in the universe. It would be very unlikely, right? So that is just such an interesting idea to me. And Mars is a likely place. So, I mean, we know, we're pretty sure that at some point there was some kind of like biological organism on Mars. So that's really fascinating to me. So I guess that's the one that I would want to visit. I also think, I would like to see some of the other ones up close, like do a drive-by,
So on that note, you are one of those people that, given the opportunity and if it was available for everyday people, you would go to space.
I mean, I'd like to think I would. It's scary, right? I mean, would I do that? I don't know. That's a really good question. Would you?
Well,
I think I would. I like to travel.
Well, I love to travel too.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. The more I think about it, I've sat down before and been like, hard no, I'm not going. My husband would be on the first flight, and I would have to be like, great, it's been so nice knowing you. Thanks so much. So I know that he would go. Do I feel like he could probably convince me? Probably, but it's scary to me as someone who has flight anxiety. Just even the thought of being in a rocket ship to leave Earth is really terrifying. But at the same time, I mean, I don't think anything could compare to having that sort of experience if it were an everyday affordable adventure that
For sure.
And just I would have to have some safety requirements.
Yeah. I did
Um,
jump on a plane one time. I did go skydiving when I was younger, and I never thought I would do that, but like my brother wanted to do it for his birthday. We were in our 20s, and I did it with him. And that experience, while terrifying, I mean, I cannot believe that we actually did that, was like nothing else I've ever experienced precisely because of being so far away from the ground, right? So, I mean, the idea of, yeah, as in theory, yes, I would be on that space shuttle. I'm not sure if actually in practice if I would or not, but I don't know.
I actually would like to go skydiving. Even though I'm like I just said, I have flight anxiety. I don't even know why. Because I have been like very fortunate and blessed to have traveled for since I was very little, and my flight anxiety didn't start until I was like traveling for work, which so then it was like the more I was on planes, the more anxious I got, which didn't make sense. I should be more comfortable. I should be, but I would like to skydive just like have you ever seen those videos of the people in Arizona, the Grand Canyon, that it's bungee jumping, but a swing essentially, and they kind of launch off. I really want to do that.
It looks amazing. And there's a wonderful book, which is back to books by written by a friend of mine that came out recently called Why Fly. She's a pilot, and it's kind of a memoir of like, she's not a commercial pilot, she's a hobby pilot. Not, or that's putting it too mildly, but she flies for recreational reasons. And the memoir is kind of about like as her marriage dissolved, she like became more fascinated with being in the air and like obsessed with being in the air. And it's sort of about that journey, but also just about flight and why humans love to fly in general. It's a really wonderful book by Caroline Paul, Why Fly.
Oh, okay. I need to look at that. I'm very interested in that. It kind of in a different way and not this total same subject, but it's kind of reminding me of a travel memoir that I read last year, called Walk Like a Girl by Claudia Esnoof.
Yeah, I've
Um,
seen that. I haven't read that one, but yeah.
and but I mean, just the idea of it, and I love that. That was kind of I read her book last year, and I felt like tectonic plates shifted for me in my life when I read her book, but it has a lot to do with sort of a relationship dissolving as they are like setting out to hike around the world a little bit. So okay, that sounds right up my alley. I will have to add that one and then hopefully cover it later on the podcast. That would be really cool.
Yeah, she's amazing. That's funny. I'm reading a book right now, listening to a book called Sea Wife by Amity Gage. And it is same idea, but it's fiction about a couple whose marriage is very much on the rocks, and they set off to sail around South America with their two kids. Basically,
Wow.
my husband wants to. And, it's sort of going back and forth between the two of them. It's one of those books where something really terrible is going to happen, but you're not sure what it is. I still don't know what it is. I'm sort of hanging in the balance with it now, but yeah, really
You're a little
good.
bit stressed.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, we've kind of been already talking about it, but before we get much further, can you tell for everyone listening that hasn't had a chance to read it what Lies We Tell About the Stars is all about?
Sure, yeah. So it takes place in San Francisco. Then a major earthquake, kind of the big one that everyone's waiting for, happens on the very first page of the book. We're not waiting for it, but we know it's coming one of these days. And so the main character, Celeste, her best friend, Nikki, they're both seniors in high school, he goes missing on the day of the earthquake. And of course, everyone assumes the worst, but she knows that he's been planning his disappearance, that he was planning to run away. He's been involved in a cheating scandal at school, and his life has sort of started to fall apart already before the earthquake. And she thinks that he actually has run away and is still out there. So she goes on a quest to find out what really happened to him, and also to, prove to everyone that he's still alive. So yeah, that's
And then
the seed of the story.
That is so many things that I want to get to, but let's start with, like you mentioned, page one. Everybody knows about, for the concept of this, begins with the big one. And I understand that you lived through the 1989 San Francisco earthquake. So did you pull in kind of your personal experience from that into this story, or how did this initially develop?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit for sure. I don't think I realized that that was part of it until I got a little ways into writing. I mean, I think I was 12 at the time, 12 or 13. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, no, maybe I was 13. No, 12. I was 12 at the time. Sorry. It was in October. And it was definitely a formative experience for those of us who were young at the time, I think, and even adults, but it wasn't a major earthquake on the scale of the one in this book. I mean, there was obviously terrible damage, there were casualties. It was a very tragic time for the city. But I think also our lives just sort of continued, right? I mean, they have to. I like after I sold the book, a friend of mine, her sister, gave me a gift. She had found in one of the little free libraries around town, she found a book of student writing from a middle school, a big public middle school in the Marina, which was a neighborhood that was quite affected by that earthquake because there were fires there. So it was student writing from 1990. So these kids, and it was called Aftershocks, and these kids were writing about their experience of being in the earthquake. And, it was everything from like, now we have to have PE in the classroom because our gym doesn't exist anymore, right? Things like that. And like, I lost my uncle, right? I mean, a very wide range. And that's how young people are, right? I mean, you're living your day to day. Your life is very much, it's still small. You don't know it's like, it's hard to think about the wider world because you're still growing up, right? So I was interested in that. I don't know why that was a tangent about the student writing. It just helped me think about, whether my character's perspective actually made sense, I guess. But yeah, I was interested in thinking about what it's like when you are a young person about to come of age, like just on the cusp of adulthood, and your world falls apart, in different ways, many different ways at the same time in this case. Because she has the very real, tragedy of the earthquake, that the city falling apart around her, and then she also has this grief, the loss of her friend, or potential loss of her friend. So she's sort of managing all these different ways in which her life has fallen to pieces. So it's and picking all those pieces up.
It felt like a very, and I get this is not coming from a young adult's point of view anymore, but for me, it felt like a very real portrayal of how if I was that age and experiencing this, like probably would have responded, and not always the cleanest, like it's a very messy thing. And on top of it, and I'm sure we'll get to it, like she has all of these different external so changes and forces, but then internally too, she's dealing with her own chronic illness, and amidst all of this too, and how do you deal with that in the midst of this tragedy as well? So it was very, very moving and powerful to just see her response to all of this, which I want to get to more. I want to talk all about Celeste and her voice. The title, well, I love the title. From without even ever knowing about it, I was like, oh, I love that. I just feel moved by that title, and it is in the story like word for word. So did that come first, or did that come out in your writing, and as you just knew that that was it once you hit that point?
I mean, this is very unglamorous. I actually, I didn't. This was not the original title. I had called it Gemini before,
Okay.
which I liked. I liked the title Gemini, but my agent, who's incredibly savvy, said to me, with a teen book, you really have to telegraph to the readers the type of book it is. Like, genre needs to be there in the title and on the cover. And she put it forward, which I think is totally true, that Gemini sounds more like a fantasy book or sci-fi. And it isn't either of those things. I mean, it's funny because I've noticed a couple of places online where it's referred to as a science fiction book, and I'm just like, it's not that. I mean, it has, it is decidedly not that. It has the space element, but But it's funny. I'm glad we didn't call it Gemini. I also sometimes feel like this title is very long, so I have to remind people of what it is occasionally. But so my agent and I sort of batted back and forth ideas for the title, and she called out this line from the book and said, "What about this?" And so we both agreed that that was a great. I love that moment in the book. I like that. I mean, I feel like the title. You know, again, not to give away too much, but there's, you know, a lot about constellations in the book. And so the titles seemed to me metaphorically resonant for the characters. And so, yeah, I was glad with where we ended up with it. But yeah, I wish it were, there were a better story behind it. But, you know, titles are honestly my least favorite part of writing. It's so hard to come up with just the right thing. But I feel good about this one. And I think it does have that because it comes late in the book also. I love that moment as a reader when you get to if the title happens to come from the language of the book, like when you get to that moment, it's such a nice, like, oh, you know, moment and it kind of makes you say, I should pay attention to this moment and think about what it means. So I'm hoping that that's kind of the effect that it has also.
Mission accomplished for me.
Yeah.
No, but I'm always curious because yours is the second book this year where that I can actively remember that it's the same thing where the title is a very specific moment. So A Gift Before Dying by Malcolm Kemp was another one that I read earlier this year and talked to him, and same thing, it's in the book. And with him too, I was fascinated about like, where did that come from? And not the exact same story, but he was like, well, it definitely wasn't the title to begin with. And so I don't know. I still think it's a great story to share about how that came to be. Well, curious. So do you have a favorite constellation though?
And that's an interesting. I like Cassiopeia.
Okay.
I like that it looks like a letter. I don't know. I mean, and it's one of those where I like the constellations where you could look at it and you're like, that just really looks nothing like the thing that's supposed to be. Because that actually, I remember as a kid realizing that the constellation, like when I remember the moment that I learned that these were just pictures that humans had drawn in the sky, right? They were not, those stars are really nowhere near each other. And it's just a map, right? Constellations are a map that like ancient people used to help navigate. So to me, that's really fascinating in many different ways, but also I just remember the moment of being like, what? I feel like I was lied to. You know? And so there we have it. I guess that's where that came from. I'm just realizing right now, but it's one of those emotions you have as a kid, you know, that shattered at some point.
And then there are many moments where you get older and you're like, I think I was lied to this entire time, or I was misinformed.
Just because adults thought it was charming that I still believe that. But yeah, I do love the ones where there's just no even like pictorial resemblance to what it's supposed to be. That's really interesting to me. I mean, even when, you know, there's a little on the dedication page of the book, my kids who are twins, and so we put a little Gemini constellation, which does play a role in the story, on the dedication page. And there were like a few different designs for that because you can look up that constellation and find all these different possibilities for what it's supposed to look like. So it's all about interpretation, which is so interesting to me. You know, the stories that we bring to the stories that exist as like in our culture, you know, our personal interpretation of them.
With the space and astronomy aspect though, I'm very curious. Were you always just a space nerd too, or do you have any sort of background, or what did your research process look like? Because there was so much incredible information woven throughout this story that I was like, either her research process probably seemed really intense, or she has been studying space because it's been so interesting to her for years.
That's very sweet of you to say. I would say I probably don't even really qualify as a space nerd. Like I'm really interested in space and I love it, but it's a very casual interest and always has been. I definitely took astronomy in college, but do not recall much of it. And you know, I think I took it because I was interested in space and I needed to take a science class and was not really in science.
Me with oceanography, and I'm like, I took oceanography in class. I got an A.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did do research. It's because, I mean, I wrote the first draft of this book in 2018, so it's been quite some time. But I did research. Again, it was sort of because that came in later. It was a little bit situational where I did research to kind of make sure that I was getting the technical aspects of things right. And so that the characters would feel authentic in their space interest. I'm trying to think of what that research entailed. I mean, it was mostly internet research, just kind of, I mean, actually, I did some research on, there's a point where message boards are mentioned of people who like to go to space to launches, and those exist. So I was looking at those. I was watching YouTube videos, which helped me kind of, because I've never seen a launch myself, like helped me imagine what that experience might be like. So yeah, it was a lot of internet research rather than real research. I mean, no, that I shouldn't throw shade at research. That is mostly what our research is these days. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I have any like special scientific knowledge of space. It's more from reading science fiction, and then reading some nonfiction about space as well. Although it's been quite some time since I did any of that. But visiting planetariums. I'm a casual space nerd, I would say.
I'm going to take that term, the casual space nerd, because
Yes.
that's where I fall. I'm like, don't actually ask me anything specific, but do I have a casual interest in it? Do I find it really, really neat? Yes, 100%. So,
Yeah.
well, talking about the characters too, so not just their interest in space, let's take a closer look at Celeste and Nikki, who are really like our two key characters here. Was one harder than the other to really develop or find a voice for?
Yeah, I mean, so it's hard with Nikki because he's mostly missing, right? So then there's the challenge of like making him real for the reader, but
Which was so unique, and loved how you did that
thank
to
you. It
have
was a
him.
balance.
I don't want to give it away, so I'm trying to think about how to say this. He is missing, but he is very much a part of the story.
Yes. So, and that was right. I played around with it a lot. Like, I considered including chapters that were written in his point of view, even. Because that early on I thought, well, maybe I won't want to be with, one narrator the whole time. What would it be like to actually have Nikki be present in the story? But that eliminated the mystery element in a way that I wasn't necessarily I mean, of course, I actually love to read mysteries. That's my favorite genre of book. So I wanted there to be a mystery at the core of the story. So yeah, I played around with that. Those would have been in the past. I don't know. It got a little tricky with the timeline. I wanted it to feel very immediate because they're living through this like post-disaster moment, and taking us too much into the past felt like it was going to be throw the balance off a little bit, and just pull us too far out of the story. So I did end up including those flashbacks. There's these sort of interstitial chapters that are flashbacks, and that helped bring Nikki to life, I think. The concept of there's like sort of ghostly presence of Nikki that Celeste calls fake Nikki, who's sort of hanging around throughout the story like peanut gallery, telling her what to do, cracking jokes at her, like rolling his eyes at her. And that was kind of another way that I discovered along the way of bringing his personality onto the page, and of like helping Celeste sort of individuate or extricate herself, because that's part of her journey as a character, is like she's been very dependent on this friendship. Again, I won't give too much away, but that's a really important part of her character arc, is sort of finding who she is as an individual without Nikki. I think that one thing that I was interested in writing about in the YA for a YA audience is friendship, right? The how important friendship is to teens, the intensity of friendships that can happen when you are young, and how that helps us become who we are. So that was something that I was exploring with those flashbacks and the fake Nikki scenes too, is like, how is Celeste like coming to terms with the fact that Nikki isn't going to be her life in the same way anymore, and what does that mean about who she's becoming?
I'm absorbing it all. I'm taking it all in because, well, I think that it's a great way to explain the complexity of it too. And to your point, I think at that age, I mean, I remember with myself too, you feel everything so intensely.
Yeah.
And so it's a friendship that's so important to her, but then also the complexities of loss and grief and she's also without giving anything away, like navigating secrets in the midst of all of this too, and just the heaviness that that would put on any person, but especially someone in such an important time in their life, such a formative time, um, was really, I don't know, you can either look back on it and think and see yourself maybe not in the exact same situation, hopefully nothing quite as horrific, but there you definitely remember the friendships and the different things too. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is not only the loss and the grief, but also talking about like grieving somebody that you very much want to be alive or think could be alive. There's a possibility out there too, and there's that element of grief of someone who there's like hope and possibility too with all of that, which I thought a lot about with her story too, and how difficult that would be as a 17, almost 18-year-old, really trying to reckon what that means.
So hard, right? And the uncertainty is hard for everyone. Adults, I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things, just not knowing something for sure, not having answers. And I think when you're young, that's just like a constant state of things. So, one of you asked before, like where the idea came from. And one of the things, I mean, my father was ill when I was young, so I wanted to write about illness. In this case, it's of course the young person herself who is ill, but and then also my parents split up when I was a teenager. So I kind of had this idea, these feelings that were still very real to me about like, again, what I said before, like what it feels like when things are falling apart, just as you're expected to kind of like go out and be an adult. And I think one of the things for Celeste is like, she doesn't know what the future holds, and that is scary, and I think we all are like, you unfortunately that feeling does not go away as you become an adult. You like not knowing what you're going to have for dinner becomes so but I think that especially now, for young people, I mean, the world is, there's a lot happening that I think looks like sort of bleak for the future, and that is hard on young people in particular. And I think I wanted to tell a story that like is about getting through hard things. It was interesting that the pandemic happened in the course of my writing this book, because, then it was like all the young people I knew all of a sudden like had recently been through something that was unprecedented and created all this uncertainty and created conditions where they were living in ways they had never expected to have to live. And so it was really interesting to like, see how that affected the people in my community, and my, think about it myself. It was just, at first I thought, well, how is this going to, because I hadn't actually finished the book at that point. So at first I wondered like, how is this going to ultimately affect how I see this story? But I think it even more so highlighted the need for like stories that address this question of like, how do we get through things, and how do we learn to get through things as young people in a way that like sets us up to at least go out in the world and be okay, I guess. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk to you about sort of the importance with literature for young adults, especially when it comes to dealing with sort of these complex and more mature themes of like tragedy, large scale crises, like many young adults experienced 6 years ago, loss, sex, all of that too, and like the importance of that. So I'm glad you brought that up. I was also curious did your experience as a librarian and also navigating the pandemic with COVID-19 and everything and being around younger preteens, also younger children, do you think that influenced some of your writing too, or helped you tap into the voice for Celeste?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm pretty new to librarianship too. Like this is actually my second year as a head librarian. So I just finished my my library degree last year. So this is kind of a career U-turn for me. At the same time as this book is coming out, I'm also like, starting off on this career in libraries. But I had spent, I mean, I have, as I said, I have two kids who are teens now, who they're now sort of the right age to read the book, which was kind of fun because that happened at the same time as the as the book actually came out. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would say I definitely have, because we are in a community of families, I definitely know enough teens where I had a few um, friends who have teens, like I had teen readers who gave me some really helpful feedback on the book along the way. um yeah, I would say that I don't know. I mean, I guess I wanted to write a story for young readers because I love children's literature, and I feel like it is so important to have stories that we connect with. And I was really interested in how I was interested in doing something different as a writer. I mean, I had never written anything for a younger audience before. And as I mentioned earlier, like this is such a long journey for me in terms of writing. So I had written this adult novel many years ago that didn't quite get, like, came close to being published and didn't. So then I quit for a while. Like there's just, it's been a lot of like twists and turns along the way. So I think I was excited about doing something different, which is how YA popped into my mind. And then I got really excited about the idea of, writing a story that young people might connect with. So that involved a lot of choices about, like, I really wanted it to feel authentic for them. you know so you brought up the sex, like there's sex in the book. It is, definitely for a more mature teen audience. I wanted it to feel honest. And I had a question at one of my events recently where someone asked me, as a parent, how do you, feel about the choices that the teens are making in the book? It wasn't a critical question. This is someone who had just told me how much he loved the book, but I sort of was like, oh, I've never thought about them that way. Like yes, I'm a parent, but I did not think about the choices these teens were making in a way, like from a parent's perspective. I felt much closer to them as kids than I do as an adult. So yeah, I mean, I guess in some ways, like I always felt proud of the risky and perhaps stupid decisions that they make throughout the book. I understand that it has effects on their families too, but yeah, I think for kids, a lot of times what they connect with in a story is the choices the characters making that feel authentic to choices they might make themselves. So that was something that was always in my mind when I was writing, is like, what would a young person who doesn't have a lot of experience making decisions do when she's confronted with tragedy, when she is, asked to act in a way that is beyond her years, right? When she's dealing with illness. I mean, all of these things. So yeah, I really enjoyed that process of like trying to connect with whether it was a younger version of myself or just what a younger person would do when faced with difficult moments.
The, I don't know. I know that this is a very much a topic when it comes to like the line between what is YA adult, and I
Yeah.
don't know that it is like a hard set line in my opinion, but I do think about the books that I even read in middle school and high school. And there was, I'm not even going to call it adult content because I don't think it was that, but there were definitely more mature concepts in it that I think that I had a supportive family that, felt like I could handle a lot of that subject matter. But with all of that too, I do feel like whether no matter what age it is, but like YA or adult books, we are looking mostly, in most cases, for characters that we can relate to on some level, and they part of having books is them not always making like the perfect decision. And I certainly know that I didn't always make the best decisions as a teen and look back and think, wow, like would have done that differently. But that's how you learn, that's how you grow and how you figure out who you are and what you care about. And I just think that books give you such, especially as a young adult, like such great perspective and empathy to for people in lots of different situations. So I know I'm very grateful that I guess I didn't have like limitations growing up on what
Mm.
I could and couldn't read, because I really think it shaped my appreciation for books and humanity in a different way, where if there had been some sort of structure of, you have to avoid this, you're not allowed to read about that, I don't know what that would have looked like today. And it definitely gave me a lot of appreciation. I had someone say to me once, not about me, but they were talking about their younger daughter, who they were just like, she's such a reader, we can't get her out of books. And then this person goes, and it seems like her empathy and just how she feels for the world is so intense because of the books. And I was like, yeah, but that's a great thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see a single thing wrong with that. Like if you're telling me that books are just making her feel for people who don't look like her, don't sound like her, are from different walks of life, or she's just having fun with it. Like I don't know. I think it's so important to still have books out there that capture the complexity of being a young adult. And I also think we need to give them a lot more credit for what they can handle and read.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a matter of respect, I think, I mean, I think that, right, we can give them the respect of giving the freedom to choose for themselves, right? And there's a lot, I think that we have the opposite problem sometimes of like other types of media, perhaps, and not to get too far into this, but like might end up desensitizing them in various ways, right? So, but books, I think, have this power to really, like, as you say, create empathy, open these, I mean, in librarians, we use this beautiful metaphor, windows and mirrors, from this wonderful education scholar, Rudine Sims Bishop, who talked about how kids need, windows into books to be windows into other people's lives and mirrors of our own lives. And I mean, we all need that, right? It's so important, especially now. And I think, it's books are powerful in a way that something that has a visual image connected with it, like a moving visual image, like a movie or videos or video games, it's a bit different. Um, I don't know. I think books are a safe space to explore a lot of different things for young people. That's how I see it.
I completely agree. Well, I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but to sum it up, how do you hope readers, whether they're young adult or adult, feel after finishing Lies We Tell About the Stars?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I hope that it has, we mentioned the different genres that have been mentioned in association with it. I hope it has a little bit of something for everybody. I think that a lot of the readers I encounter, young people especially, they don't like to read just one kind of book, right? They like to read lots of different kinds of books. So this book has a little element of mystery. It has a little element of the speculative fiction, the disaster fiction. It has a little romance mixed in there. So I'm hoping that it has, kind of something fun I mean, it's a pretty serious book, but it has, like, I think it has story elements that might appeal to lots of different kinds of readers. So I hope that it can reach out to different kinds of readers in that way. And in terms of like takeaways, I guess I like I said before, I hope that people come to the end of this and think like, okay, this is an example of a person getting through something really hard, that this is like, there's a point where the Celeste's mom's character says something to her about, okay, you will actually be on the other side of this at some point. There's a couple of times where adults talk to her about like what they do when they're in a difficult place. And I don't know, I guess I hope that the story itself can help young people like think about how to get through hard things. Because I think that's an important, I mean, not that I wanted to have a lesson or whatever, but I think reading stories about people finding themselves in the course of really unprecedented, difficult conditions can help us understand how to find ourselves. So yeah.
Or a refreshing reminder if you're an adult too.
Right. Yeah, there's that also.
Well, before we go, I know you mentioned you are writing. What can you tell us about what you're working on now, if anything? Do you find yourself returning to the same themes? Are you going in a whole new direction? It's still YA, yes?
Yeah, it's still YA. It's I'm really excited about it because I think I've discovered something about the type of stories that I like to write. Not that they will all be like this, but I really enjoyed writing a story that had the backdrop of a sort of big deal global event, right? So in this case, it was the earthquake. The new book has a climate fiction angle to it, where there's kind of a very insane situation happening with the government creating a climate change stopgap that like has a huge effect on people's lives. But the story is really about the characters. And so it's sort of that the climate fiction aspect is more like the backdrop or the setting than it is the plot. That it has both elements, just like this book does. But yeah, I was really interested in kind of writing another book that has that, like the character drama is the main point of the story, but then there's also this global catastrophe that the characters are confronting. And it's actually a road trip book, because I also love those stories and thought it would be fun to write one. So yeah, I don't want to say too much about it, but it has all those elements involved. So the characters end up going on a journey to try to escape something that's happening globally, but it also, in the course of it, the relationships among the characters grow and change, and yeah.
Well, you don't have to divulge all your secrets. You've piqued my interest already. So, I can't wait to hear more about that. And so on that note, where is it best for everybody to follow along with your journey and with this story, with everything upcoming? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Bree. So, yeah, I'm on Instagram at Susie K Nadler, SUSIEKNADLER. You can find me there. You can also connect to my Instagram via my website, which is just susienadler.com, and you can contact me through my website too. I'd love to meet readers and talk to readers, so interested in doing school visits and things like that.
Very cool. That would be so fun. And I will link to all of that in the podcast notes as well, so it's easy for everybody to connect with you as always. Susie, I was so excited for this conversation and the many layers of your work and your personal experiences and how they've shaped your story and this story. So thank you so much for sharing your insights into this process, this long journey that it's been for you. I'm so excited for you, and I can't wait for everybody else to dive into Lies We Tell About the Stars.
Thank you so much, Bree. This was really fun to talk to you. I love to talk to people who are just like also voracious readers. It's just fun to hear about everything you're reading. I like want to write down all the titles now after we go.
Yeah, anytime. I mean that is it. It was so my co-host and also my best friend, she was just on a book panel this past weekend in the Midwest. And one of their questions, they're like, so why did you start a book podcast? Which is that could actually, I mean, I could talk for an hour about it, but it was truly like we live 2,000 miles away from each other, and we were like, we just wanted to be able to talk to each other a lot more. And one of the things we talk about in our normal conversation is books. We love to talk about books. We became best friends in AP English. And so this has just been an opportunity to like welcome other people into to yap about books and how much we love them and how important they've been in our lives and other people's too. So we feel really fortunate to have conversations like this with you as well.
I love that. How nice. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening. The Narratives and Nightcaps podcast is a production of The Craft Co. with intro music created by Remington Haynes.
Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow at Narratives and Nightcaps on Instagram or visit our website, narrativesandnightcaps.com.
Sign up for our newsletter to always know what we're reading next, which authors are joining us on the show, and for extra bookish and beverage info.
Connect with our additional co-hosts, Jordan and Emily, as well.
You can find me on Instagram at Cozy Reads and Sips.
And you can find me on Instagram at books.bottles.
Cheers!
Cheers!